You are carrying something and no one around you sees it. They may think you're fine. You even smile when you're supposed to, but deep down, there's a heaviness you can't explain and haven't told anyone about it. Unspoken pain never ever disappears. It just settles deeper and then deeper. If you ever wondered why you're still emotionally exhausted, even though you're doing okay, this video is for you, because today we're talking about something that most people never ever address. Why you're still carrying pain you never talked about. In this video, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to talk about why we hide certain wounds even from ourselves. I mean, imagine that. We don't tell ourselves. How unspoken trauma shows up in your everyday life. The toll that silence puts on your mind and your body. How to begin releasing pain you were taught to hold on to. And the surprising freedom that comes from finally giving your pain a voice. If you've been holding in pain because you didn't want to be a burden, or because no one ever asked you about it, or because you thought you were supposed to be over it by now, this video is going to help you breathe again. But before you can let it out, you have to understand why you locked it in, because most of the pain you're still carrying was never meant to be hidden in the first place. From the moment we're young, we're told, don't cry too loud. Don't bring up what's painful. Don't make things uncomfortable. So we learn how to smile through heartbreak. And over time, we get really good at hiding the pain that we're going through. We get really good at it. I remember when I was 9 or so, sitting in a room full of adults after this painful loss. I wanted to cry, but I looked around and I saw no one else showing any emotion whatsoever. So I buried it. I got quiet, I got strong, and it became a habit. You know, we don't bury pain because we're weak. We bury it because we were never taught it was safe to carry it out loud. We learned silence as survival, performance as protection, and that silence eventually becomes who we are, even when we're breaking on the inside. I want you to imagine trying to hold your breath to avoid disturbing others until eventually you're the one that's suffocating. You can only breathe so long because something inside is going to shut down. Healing starts the moment you finally exhale. But even when we hide the pain deep inside us, it still finds a way to reach the surface, not through words, but through how we show up every single day. You know, I want you to know that pain that isn't processed, it doesn't stay quiet. It leaks out into our habits, our relationships, our tone of voice, our decisions. It whispers through our reactions. Unspoken trauma becomes a hidden language in our lives. A friend of mine used to get overly defensive in conversations. She would say, "Why are you trying to control me?" when no one was. Later, she realized that as a child, she was constantly told her voice didn't matter. That wound was still speaking, just not with words. Here's what I've discovered over the years. Pain that doesn't speak, it still acts in some way. You may not notice it at first, but it shows up in the ways you either shut down, overreact, isolate yourself, or lash out. Pain always finds a way to be known. It's like a leaking pipe inside your walls. You don't see it right away, but eventually what's going to happen? It's going to leave stains on the surface. And by the time the stain is visible, the damage underneath has been there for a while. Emotional pain does the same. It hides until it spills out. That brings us to our next point, because when it spills, it just doesn't affect your thoughts or your emotion. It affects the one thing we often overlook, our body. You know, when pain has no voice, the body speaks instead. It shows up as fatigue, tightness, migraines, jaw tension, stomach issues. I mean, you name it. The body starts to say what the heart has been forced to hold in for a long time. For years, I had chronic tension in my back, and doctors couldn't find, anything wrong. But when I began journaling and going to therapy, slowly letting out years of grief and guilt, my body began to relax. I wasn't just carrying stress, I was carrying silence. So here's what I discovered. When we silence our pain, the body becomes the loudest voice in the room. That exhaustion, you can't explain it. That tension you've normalized might not be physical at all. It might be unspoken sorrow begging you to be released. It's kind of like carrying a backpack that's slowly filled with bricks. At first, you don't notice the weight, but then eventually what happens? Your back gives out, not from weakness, but from carrying what was never yours to hold alone. And you won't realize just how heavy it was until you finally set it down. That brings us to a very important point. How do you start letting go? And how do you really let go of what's been stuck inside you for so long? The answer doesn't have to be loud, but it does have to be honest. You don't need to share your pain with everyone. You don't need to unpack it all at once, but you do need to tell yourself the truth. Whether that truth's in a journal, a voice note, maybe a whisper to a safe friend. Healing starts with honesty, even in silence. The first time I admitted what happened to me, I barely spoke above a whisper, but something changed. The pain didn't control me anymore. I stopped pretending it didn't matter, and that made space for something new. Freedom. Man, I felt great. Here's what I discovered. You don't have to say it loud. You just have to stop denying it. Even a whisper, a little small whisper of truth can be louder than a lifetime of silence. Don't underestimate what happens when you finally say, "That hurt me." Think of a locked room that's never been opened. Never ever been opened. It doesn't need to be shouted into. It just needs a little light. Opening the door changes the air. It invites peace in. And when peace enters, healing follows close behind. This brings us to another powerful point. When peace shows up, when your truth finally breathes, you just don't feel different. You feel free. There is nothing more freeing than no longer pretending, no longer shrinking yourself to protect others, no longer hiding your pain in your jaw, your chest, your shoulders. When you finally give that pain a voice, even if it's just to yourself, you begin to breathe again. A woman I worked with once wrote in her journal, "I didn't realize how long I had been performing strength until I finally cried out in front of someone." That cry changed everything. It was the beginning of her truth. So this is what I've discovered. Letting go of hidden pain isn't weakness. It is healing, finally allowed to breathe. You're not fragile for feeling. You're strong for surviving, and you're free the moment you stop hiding. This metaphor just kind of brings it all together. Imagine holding your breath underwater, convinced no one will rescue you. And then one day, you rise, you gasp for air, and then you realize you were always allowed to come up. That first breath, that is what healing feels like. You don't have to change everything today, but you can start quietly, privately, just you, your truth. That's it. Ask yourself this question. What pain have you never talked about, but you still carry? Write without judgment, without grammar, without edits. This isn't for anyone else. It's for the part of you that is still holding its breath. Journaling gives silence a voice, and it gives pain a way out. Most people wait until they feel better to write. But the real power is writing when you don't. That's when honesty shows up. I want you to think of your journal as a quiet mirror. It doesn't fix the pain. It doesn't fix the pain at all. However, it reflects it so you can finally see what's been hiding. And when you see it, you can start releasing it. So if you've been carrying pain in silence, this is where the quiet ends. You do not have to keep shrinking for other people's comfort. You don't have to hold it all in to be loved. You are allowed to be seen. raw, soft, in progress, and still worthy. Let's recap the truths that we unpacked today. We learn to hide our pain. Silence always finds a voice. Our bodies remember. Our bodies remember what our mouths forget. Even a whisper of truth can begin the healing process, and releasing what's hidden feels like breathing again. You were never meant to carry this alone. You spend so much time protecting other people from your pain. What if just for today, you protected yourself instead? Wouldn't that be beautiful? Comment below, what pain have you never talked about, but still carry? You don't have to name it. Just say it. I'm ready. Subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's session, day number 3, what to do with the feelings you keep avoiding. And if you haven't already, grab your I Will Be My Best Today journal. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. Link is in the description below.